So question number 1 says that the audit shall be used to determine blank. And the correct answer was all of the work done on the home. And then it looked like about a third of the class actually selected that all the energy conservation measures to be done on the home. We haven't talked a lot about it yet, but we have other measure types that, either an incidental repair or a health and safety measure. And the answer is that it's for all of the work done on the home. That would include all the energy conservation measures plus any incidental repairs, any health and safety measures, and in many cases it would include other measures done for other funding sources. So you guys feeling okay about that? Does anybody have any questions on that one? All right, this next one, the question was, which audit should be used to evaluate this mobile home on a crawl space and why? And there was a picture of a mobile home sitting on a crawl space. Looks like everybody got this one right. There were 2 correct answers here. One of them was because it provides the best opportunity to maximize the energy savings on the home, and that would be the most correct one. And it also allows the auditor to evaluate to insulate those crawl space walls. So questions on that one? Everybody good on that one? I'm assuming everybody's good since they all got it right, but speak up if you want to talk about it. This one says we got, how does that work? There were some correct and some incorrect responses. Oh, I see. This was a multiple choice. So it says select all the measures agencies are required to have estimated measure costs for in the NEAT audit. And it said to see B9 2B III. And so B9 2B III, let's go there. It says agencies are required to have estimated measure costs for all active measures. And we find our list of active measures on that resources page. It's that list that, let me pull it up. It was this list here, the setup library measure lives settings. And so basically the idea behind the question was that you need to look on this list and see which of those measures are active and which are not active, and that you would have to make sure you have a measure cost for everyone that is active. So in this case, attic insulation is an active measure. Window replacement under the NEAT audit, and this is, I realize this is a kind of a complex question, and I am not writing it to be tricky. I'm writing it to point out that running an audit is complex, and you have to be very, very detail oriented. You have to be very aware of all the little details and nuances of the program in order to get it right, and it's very, very easy to get it wrong sometimes. So why is window replacement not an active measure?
Is it because it's an itemized measure, because it's not one that's got costs already in it, like the labor and the cost is 0 in your setup library?
Nope. I'm going to scroll down the list here. So item number 20 says window replacement, and it's listed as not active under the NEAT audit, and that's what the question was asking. But if you look at the item right below it, it says a low E window, and that is active. And it's important for you guys to be aware, we'll talk about it when we get to the Windows tab in a minute, that there's window replacement in the NEAT audit, and there's low-E window replacement in the NEAT audit. We don't replace any windows that aren't low-E, so that the regular window replacement is not active at all. We only do low-E windows in our program, and that's why this one was not correct. So smart thermostats is correct. White roof coating is not correct. That one's been inactive for a very long time. And then I threw this one on there because it's interesting. So did you guys know that when you're running the audit, you're never evaluating to see if you can replace a water heater as an energy conservation measure? That measure is not turned on in the NEAT audit or the MIA. It's the last item there, water heater replacement. It's not active at all. We replace them as health and safety measures and sometimes as non-audited measures, but we don't ever use DOE's money to replace a water heater as an energy conservation measure. So kind of interesting. Any questions on that one? Everybody feeling okay there? Next one, if a client declines the installation of blown-in attic insulation during the audit, what should the auditor do? And then it says select all that apply. And the two that would apply are the first one, which is provide client ed to attempt to eliminate the concerns. And then the second one, we have to ask ourselves this question. Is blown-in attic insulation a major measure or a minor measure? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Yeah, it's a major measure. So if it's a major measure and we can't address it with client ed, then the last one applies. The situation must be documented in the client file and the job has to be deferred. If it was a minor measure, then this second option here, include a comprehensive explanation, that could apply, but since it's a major measure, it doesn't. You have to decline defer the job, basically. So the next one, which weather file should an auditor at 6 county ALGs select for a home at an elevation of 4,165 feet? And this one was all over the map. This might have been that you guys just were ready for a break and didn't want to look up the answer. Does anybody know where you would find the answer? We had a slide about it, but it's from the guidelines, and there was that section where it actually shows which weather file each agency has to use based on their location and stuff, or based on the location of the home. I'm going to just go to the guidelines, and I know that
it's 2B11.
Okay. I was going to say I was going to search for Rock Springs because I know that's something that wouldn't show up very much in the audit, but I know it would be there. B9 2B11. Is that right?
92B11, yeah.
All right. Maybe I just need to put 11 there and see if that'll go. Nope. I'll do that. Yeah, so this was the section. So the question says, which weather file would an auditor at 6 county select for a home at an elevation of 4,165? So from this, there's nothing specific for 6 county other than these last number 5 and 6. So it would be, they fall under all their agencies below 4,500 and above 4,500. So are we below or above 4,500? I think 41 would be below the 4,500, so they should be selecting Salt Lake City, Utah. Does that make sense? And hopefully you guys are more familiar with what you need to select for your agencies, but I wanted you to get in the guidelines and look and think about how that would apply if you don't have a cheat sheet nearby. The next one, what should the measure life of a low E window be set to in the NEAT audit? And this one again comes off of the attachment, this list of measures. And the measure life of a low E window should be set to 20 years. So looks like most of you got that one right. On a home where the furnace is being converted from an electric forced air heater to natural gas, what info should be entered into the heating tab for the existing furnace? And the correct answer was info about an inefficient natural gas heater. The info about the new gas heater would be entered on the heating tab under the new equipment, but under the existing equipment or the existing furnace, that's the part where you'd be making some stuff up. So again, this one may have been worded very tricky, and I apologize for that, especially with the number of people that got it wrong. I probably need to make that one clearer.
Is that always the case that when you're doing a fuel conversion that you're not going to say what the current furnace is?
Pretty much when you're using the NEAT audit. Yeah, so the goal is that when you're done and when you evaluate the home, you want to make sure that the audit is evaluating it based off of whatever furnace is going to be there at the end of weatherization. So the only way to do that in the NEAT audit is, in most cases, you have to basically pick, if your fuel type when you're done is going to be natural gas, you're going to have to select natural gas as your fuel type for the existing furnace so that it will let you select it for the replacement furnace. Because if you had selected electric, then it doesn't give you the option. Let me pull that up.
And so, but when you're doing a fuel conversion, is that not a situation where that would be a NAM? And you're basically telling it that it's going to be a mandatory replacement?
Yes. But anytime you write a NAM, a non-audited measure, and and this is why I've struggled so much to figure out the right order to put all this stuff in, because there's like about 24 chicken and egg issues where I want to start talking about this, but you really need to understand this first, and I want to start talking about that, but you really need to understand this first. This is one of those. We will have a conversation about the 4 different measure types, probably tomorrow morning sometime. But one of the measure types is a NAM, is a non-audited measure, and most of those you're going to enter them in on the itemized cost tab. But there are 2 measure types that you are not allowed to enter on the itemized cost tab. That's a heating measure and a cooling measure, or a heater replacement and an AC replacement, to be more specific. Those, you've got to enter them on the heating tab. And the reason why is if you don't enter them here, then the audit has no idea what you're putting in. The only way that the audit is going to know that this house is going to have a 95% efficient furnace at the end of the job is if you put it here on this tab. So if we went to this house, we audited it today, and let's say this house had a forced air furnace, but the fuel was electric. It wasn't gas, it was electric. So I put that in for my existing heating system. Now when I go over to my replacement options, I have the option to put in a heat pump, to evaluate for a heat pump, put it in mandatorily, or evaluate for electric resistance system, or evaluate for nothing. there's no option there for me to select a natural gas forced air furnace. So instead of putting the information here about the existing heating system being electric, if I'll change that to natural gas, which I know that the existing system is not natural gas, but I'm going to change it, then over here under the replacement system, I can say that my replacement fuel will be natural gas. I'll be replacing it with a 95% efficient furnace. And exactly what Carrie Lynn just said, we're going to run this as a non-audited measure or a crisis measure. And to do that, we're going to select high efficiency replacement mandatory. And we'll come up here, and in the system code, we're going to change the first 3 letters from furnace to say NAM or CRM, which this one says. So now when I run this audit, that is the way that you are supposed to run an NAM furnace or a CRM furnace, is right here on this tab. So, and the question, go ahead, sorry.
And so is that because with fuel conversion, then we're not ever going to say that it's going to be audited? Is that why it's okay that you make that information up on the left-hand side?
Yes, and then so the thing that would be missing here is I would make a note and say that fuel conversion was done using LIHEAP, or I guess since I labeled this as a CRM, using crisis or under the crisis program.
Oh.
And I'd also
Conversion chart.
see, what was the other note that I wanted to put here?
So
What
like
does
when we
CRM stand for?
Oh, that the existing furnace information is made up.
yeah.
It was actually electric resistance heat. Something like that. So you just note those things and you'd evaluate it like that. Now, if this is going way over your head, we are going to come back to the heating tab and we'll spend a chunk of time on this. So don't, if you're feeling a little lost here, don't get too stressed. We'll come and take some smaller steps on this one, take some smaller bites tomorrow. So.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. But honestly, I think the way that I worded that question has probably just made it more tricky. And yeah, so the last one, the owner of an 8-unit apartment complex has applied to have her building weatherized. What should your agency do? And the answer was to contact the state for guidance. If it's an 8-unit apartment complex, you should not be auditing the tool or auditing the building using the NEAT. Probably not, depending on the way that the buildings are configured. And the other option was audit the building using the multi or some other multifamily audit tool. And that was also not correct. The tool we told DOE we would use was the Equip audit tool. So anyway, so that's the quiz.